This is to correct an error that I've made all the way through this video. It's an error that stands out, it can't be missed. And you know, I don't know why, it's inexplicable, but for some reason I kept on calling the book Gillespie and I when it was supposed to be Gillespie and I. It's supposed to be Gillespie and I, not Gillespie and I. So I suggest you overlook that. And I'm going to keep on saying Gillespie and I throughout the video, but it is what it is. Sorry about that. I had to take the video down and remake it just for that. Thank you. And now we continue with the video again.
Gillespie and I is a very, very difficult book to talk about. And therefore, Jane did hardly any interviews when it came out. And the thing is, you must not give away things in it because nothing is as it seems in it.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another one of my videos in which I speak about a book that I would recommend you read if you ever get the opportunity to. I'm doing a book review of this book by Jane Harris, published in 2011, titled Gillespie and I. Gillespie and I. Hello Freddie. Anyway, in order, is that, which one are you again? That's Hugo, right? France, yes, that's France. Anyway, in any case, we're going to, do you want to say hello? You want to say hello?
Hello.
And you? Want to say hello?
Hello.
All right, so there we go. Well, now we have to move forward with the book. Okay, so thanks to those kids. Let's get this video popping, as they say. Let's get it popping, yeah? So, a book by Jane Harris, Gillespie and I, written in 2011. I've wanted to make this video for quite a while, not too long. I'll say about a month. I wanted to make it for about a month, and it was just a case of getting the documents together, getting the research together, the little research that I was going to do about the book that I was going to have to do in order to refresh my memory about the book. And I'm still missing some items here and there. I think I read it about, let's say about 8 months ago, probably even more, to be honest, because I think that I kind of knew what was going on around that time. So it might be about longer than 8 months, but I've done a slight a bit of research, and it's all come back to me. Not all, but quite a bit of it has come back to me. So what we're talking about here is a book written by Jane Harris. It was published in 2011, and as you can see, the cover shows you a lady who is going to be the main character, her name being Harriet Baxter. You can also see a bird cage there, but there aren't any birds inside. That becomes important later, because you see the book itself swings between time periods, between let's say around 1888 till about 1890, I believe, 1890, something like that. I can't remember exactly. You see, I said a lot of it's coming back to me, but I do recall that she was there for about maybe 2 or 3 years, and it swings between that and when she's a lot older in the 1930s, 1933 to be exact. Now I could probably find some pages that will reflect that if I can. So here we have, it starts around here, April 1933, and then it kind of swings back to around 1888. Okay, so you got May 1888, and then you've also got April 1933. So it shows you that, you know, different time periods, and she's much older, a lot older by then. So the question is, what took this lady to Glasgow, and what's the story about? Well, the story, as it says, is about this lady here, Harriet Baxter, who goes to Glasgow for what was supposedly an art exhibition in Glasgow. And she meets up with an artist by the name of Ned Gillespie. Now, she kind of states that she's aware of the artist because she's met him before in London, and they had some small encounter. based upon the gentleman coming to her defense, chivalrously coming to her defense, because he believed that somebody was being rude to her, and he came to her defense saying that that person shouldn't be rude to the lady. So she kind of remembered him from then, but later, by chance, she meets him again in Glasgow. Now, what Jane Harris has done, the author has done, is in order to give this particular exhibition, or the narrative, dare I say, on the whole, a certain amount of what they call verisimilitude, a certain realism, is that she's decided to dig up some old blueprints or maps. This is of Glasgow, okay, a map of Glasgow, okay, and then later you get to see her dig up a map of the exhibition itself. So you see international exhibition. Let me focus on the page itself where it says here International Exhibition in Glasgow of 1888 for the official catalogue and guide. All right, and this is both pages where you can see. She's included that in the book, and that sort of gives you a certain sense of realism to suggest that actual exhibition did take place. And Harriet travels all the way from England, I believe London to be specific, to go and see this exhibition. She's single, she's never been married, and she's got her own money because she inherited some money from a relative. I believe it was an aunt of hers. Now, you've got to understand the kind of character that Jane Harris has written here. She's a character who's kind of, I think she's complicated, in the sense that she wants to be independent. She's unabashed about being independent, not reliant upon a man. However, she also has this rather complicated relationship with the men that she's involved in. Two men specifically, to be honest with you. First of all, if you read the first thing she writes about, her association, her acquaintance, her friendship, her deep friendship, her profound friendship with the artist Ned Gillespie. Okay, she writes about him as if he is some lost, undiscovered artist who deserved a lot better, basically, who deserved much better, but didn't get to, wasn't really discovered, was never really discovered due to a certain set of circumstances that didn't favor him. Okay, you know what I'm saying? She contrasts this artist. Now, I'll speak about the artist in a minute, because it's important to understand that she's talking about the artist posthumously. The artist is already dead. The artist, I think he died prematurely. He might have killed himself, I'm not sure, I can't remember. But there was a tragedy that led to his ultimate demise. I mean, everything fell apart after a particular tragedy, which implicates her. And if you read what we can gather from the back of the book, it tells you what went down there, what happened. It says in 1933 London, Harriet Baxter. Let's actually underline some stuff here so we can get so everybody can see what I'm reading. 1 second, yeah. Let's do that in orange, right? So we're starting around here, right? 1933 London, Harriet Baxter decides to put straight once and for all the truth about her life and the fate of an artist called Ned Gillespie. Decades earlier, Harriet arrived in Glasgow in time for the international exhibition. A young art lover of independent means, Harriet becomes friend and champion to the up-and-coming painter Ned Gillespie. She is embraced by his extended, somewhat troubled family and soon becomes a fixture in their lives. And that is absolutely correct. That is a accurate description of what happens there. But tragedy strikes the Giuseppes. Harriet's connection with them disintegrates into mystery, deception, and potentially life-changing accusations. That more or less basically sums up what happens. So you have to, in order to gather more, to understand it a little bit more, then you have to read the book and go into bigger details. And the cover itself also gives you a sort of, how can I put it? It sort of leaves you little clues in as much as the characters are concerned. Like, for example, this gentleman here with the gondola. Now, before we go there, let's look at the family, the troubled family that they talked about. What was it? The somewhat troubled family. The somewhat troubled family that they've written about here. Let's go into that for a second, because that will give us greater insight, particularly even in as much as this gondola is concerned. All right. So in the family, we've got, of course, Ned Gillespie, who she runs into, and then later she meets the family. But she also meets the artist's mother, named Elspeth. Elspeth is a person who's involved with the church, and at the moment she's engaged in some sort of charity or some sort of exchange with an American pastor, a Negro American pastor. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the way it's written. Let's you know, we're talking about 1888 and 1933, old Negro pastor from America, and he, you know, she has this sort of relationship with him. You know, a spiritual relationship with him, basically based upon church. You can't really tell whether it's superficial or not, but you do understand that she's somewhat committed. She wants to believe in those kind of activities, and you know, the charity involved that those kind of activities will bring along. So you've got the mother called Elspeth. Then there's also got a sister by the name of Mabel. Now Mabel's a little bit, you know, not forthcoming. She's quite beautiful, but rather stoic. You know what I mean? One of those cold types. You know what I'm saying? And you get the feeling that she's cold because she just hasn't met the right kind of person yet. And when she does eventually meet somebody like her, I think her character starts to soften up a bit. And the character that she meets that sort of softens her up a bit is a person that Harriet Baxter herself contrasts to the artist. That artist is an English artist. Oh, by the way, Ned Gillespie, of course, is Scottish because it's based in Glasgow. I think they might come from Jews. I don't know. I can't remember. There was something about that, about the name Gillespie. Okay. But he's got a friend called something Pedden. All right. And she doesn't appreciate the guy's work. She believes that he's kind of supercilious and superficial, that he tends to walk around as if he's dancing a jig. He like, you know, like he's light on his feet, like everything has to be like a little hey, pop, you know what I'm saying? So she doesn't like him. She thinks that she doesn't like his artwork. She feels that all he does is just paint kittens and puppies and flowers and, you know, nothing more profound than that. She actually says that there must be a reason, or somebody who has to paint those type of pictures, but she's not into that. You know what I'm saying? That there has to be a purpose for those type of pictures, but she doesn't find them to be to her taste. Now, I said that she's complicated because she's independent. You feel that she has this deep love for this artist, yet there is a part where she gets questioned by Ned Gillespie's wife called Annie. Now, Ned has two daughters with this lady, and the way she's described, you get this feeling that she was young, beautiful, blonde, you know what I'm saying? And they're still all over themselves. They're still, you know what I mean, very much into themselves. She's into Ned Gillespie. They've got two daughters. One of the daughters happens to be a bit troubled, and the book goes into that. And the tragedy that gets spoken about does involve one of the daughters. Okay, the other daughter's name is Rosie, and things start to become a little bit dark, get a bit darker. Then, now I said that the book sort of switches from time period from about 1888 to about 1933. So when we go back to 1933, we start seeing a different kind of narrative being told, and you can sort of relate it back to what went down in around 1888 and 1889 and so on and so forth. But by then she's much older. She's living alone. she's got this apartment. She's got loads of art in it. By then, of course, Ned Gillespie's dead. You know that he's dead. He's destroyed a lot of his work because he has a mental breakdown. But she's living alone. She's got these 2 birds. As I told you, there's a bird cage. You can see the bird cage there, right? You can see the bird cage there, okay? But the birds that she's got inside those bird cages are finches. And she's named those 2 birds after 2 lovers from an Arabic fable of some sort. It's Arabic, then Persian, then Turkish. The story of Majnun and Layla, or Layla and Majnun, I believe it's called. Let me just double check there. Alright, I think it's called, yes, Majnun and Layla and Majnun, or Layla's mad lover, Majnun. It's a 7th century Arabic story, and she's named, so you know, you can tell that Harriet Baxter is quite educated, you know what I'm saying? She's quite independent.
And then in doing Gillespie and I think I did want a different challenge, and I thought, well, I'll have someone who's very highly educated English, pedantic use of commas, like in the observations there's hardly any punctuation. Gillespie and I, there's too many bits of punctuation because she's so pedantic in the way she writes. And I suppose I slightly based the character of well, one of the inspirations, she comes from a few places, but one was my husband's grandmother, who was the wife of a diplomat and was an incredibly proper lady, very posh, and is now dead. But and she's one of those people who isn't. She had a very girlish little voice like that, but she could say incredibly cruel things in that voice, so that you wouldn't quite know that she would, you know, she was being mean. And so she would say things to me like, "Oh, darling, I do hope that one day you'll be as successful as your husband." You know, other great quotes, like we just moved into a flat. She'd go, "Oh, darlings, do you have a lovely view?" "Oh, well, never mind. One doesn't need a view when one has a life of the imagination." And my favourite was, and she would always do it when there was no one in the room. She would go to me, she'd say, "Oh, darling, would you change my duvet for me? I can't do it anymore." So I was changing her duvet, and she'd, "Darling, you do that so well. You do it almost as though you were born to it."
But once again, I'm going to have to go back in a minute to the reason why I find a character a bit complicated, and you know, this makes for a good story. Okay, so she's named these 2 birds after these 2 lovers, but she also has a carer, because obviously she's an advanced age by then, and the carer's name is Sarah. But she has these suspicions about this Sarah. All right, because first of all, she suspects that she's not telling the truth in terms of where she comes from. She believes that the accent seems forced and fake. Okay, and then one day she walks into her apartment unannounced because her carer believes that she's going to be out for quite a while, and she sees a different kind of demeanor to the lady. She's sitting with her back, staring at some of her pictures on the wall. I think she was smoking a cigar too, with her feet up, and she becomes very suspicious of this lady. And what really makes her most suspicious is the fact that the lady, the carer, whose name is Sarah, no matter what the weather, whether it's hot, warm as hell, okay, winter, summer, spring, whatever, she's always dressed warm. She's always covered up. So she tries to devise a plan to even get her to take some of the layers of her clothing off so she can see something that she suspects about the lady. But that doesn't work. Instead, the lady still carries on she sets the lady a task that will make her sweat and get her warm inside the apartment. And she logically believes that that will force that woman to take some of the layers of clothing off, but she doesn't. But anyway, that's by the by. Now, I said that she's complicated because obviously she gets questioned by the wife of the artist, Ned, about, because the wife is a bit suspicious, like, why is this lady always in our lives and stuff? But then she's already involved herself in the life of Ned and the family. In order to actually illustrate that, let's read a bit of what she says. This is after she's met the family and she's met Ned, and how she decides to go about it. So we're going to read a bit starting here, okay? She says, having given the matter some thought, I decided to see what could be done to help this Ned Gillespie, this talented young man. It was the least I could do and would involve little or no hardship on my part. Clearly, a number of factors stood between him and real success. From our conversation in the park, I deduced that for financial reasons, he was forced to churn out popular pictures instead of indulging his own more interesting creativity. I also suspected that he was rather at the mercy of his charming but unruly family, who must surely have been a great distraction from his crowds, especially since his studio was in the attic of his home. Lastly, it was obvious that he lacked the circle of influence, the friends in high places that tend to make life easier for many artists. Poor Ned had no such advantage, and I had an inkling that he was neither mercenary nor calculating enough to cultivate influence or moneyed acquaintances. So that's her assessment and why she decides to take up the course and champion the course, as they say, of this artist. Now, I said that she's complicated, okay, because she gets sort of interrogated by the wife of this artist, like, don't you want a man? Like, like women would get a bit jealous, like, what are you doing hanging around my man all the time? Why are you trying to hang around my husband? Don't you want a husband of your own? And she becomes a bit indignant, and you understand that she's not faking it, that she really believes in her independence and she doesn't believe that she needs to depend on a man. And the way it's actually written, you get the feeling that she is firmly resolute in the fact that she doesn't need a man, that she wants to be independent, and she feels really at odds with society, having to question her and making her feel guilty for that. That is something that actually comes back and works against her later when she gets in a bit of trouble. When she gets in a bit of trouble because of the social norms, which tend to frown upon ladies like that who are independent and happen to be spinsters, making it believe as if she must be some kind of wicked woman to not have her husband and stuff like that, which is kind of used against her. But she's able to eventually, well, let me not give that away. You have to read the book, see what goes on there. Now, I spoke about the gondola, right? I think I pointed out the gondola there, the gondola here. Now, the reason why that gondola is important, I told you that the cover gives you little tips, is because of Ned's brother. He has a brother, and the brother runs a shop that was left to Ned and the brother by their father. It's wool and upholstery or something like that. Wool and upholstery, and then it's expanded, but Ned eventually drops out of the business and becomes an artist while the brother takes care of the business. Now, there's about to be a scandal about the brother, which Harriet Baxter helps out with. Okay, and you read it here just to give you a little insight into what she thought about Kenneth. Okay, and what you have to read the book to know why there was about to be some sort of scandal. But let's just read it from here. It says, a vision of Kenneth poling up and down the Venetian canals flashed into my mind. I almost laughed, so incourageous was the image. Incongruous, forgive me. Let me do that again. I don't know why I made an error there. So let's say, a vision of Kenneth poling up and down the Venetian canals flashed in my mind, and I almost and I almost laughed, so incongruous was the image. Never let it be said that I was pleased that Ned's brother had fled Glasgow so mysteriously. However, there was perhaps a slight sense of relief on my part, as I suspected also on the part of Annie. At least we were able to comfort each other, and the thought that Kenneth was in all likelihood safely escaped somewhere far from Glasgow from his gondolier friend allowed us both to be optimistic about his welfare. Okay? So, you know, it is what it is. You have to read that story to know what was going on there. So, all in all, though, when you put the story together, you got the brother there, you got the brother of the artist, you got Ned the artist himself. You see the way she talks about the artist. You get the feeling that she's somewhat in love with the artist, but even a little bit more than a platonic sort of love, really. You do sense that she probably could have had an affair with the artist, the way she sort of superimposed herself into their lives, but at the same time you also get the feeling that she wouldn't do it. So you kind of conflicted there, but the biggest conflict that I noticed in the book is the relationship that she has with her stepfather. Now, as I pointed out, right, she supposedly was going to help Ned, and she talked about Ned not having influence and the money interest, people with financial backing and so on and so forth. Let me put that up again. Okay, let me put that up again. So she talked about he wasn't mercenary enough, neither mercenary nor calculated enough to cultivate influential or moneyed acquaintances. But she was. Okay? But she is. Alright? What did she say about the advantages? Interest in creativity. I also suspected that he was rather at the mercy of his charming but unruly family, who also surely had been distraction, blah 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 blah. Lastly, it was obvious he lacked a circle of influence and friends in high places that tend to make life easier for many artists. Now, she happens to know somebody who can help in as much as that is concerned, and that person is her stepfather, I should say. But her stepfather is also quite the relationship she has with her stepfather, because we're talking about a very independent, strong-minded woman here who reveres this man, and this man takes advantage of her. You know what I mean? She's constantly looking for the approval of this guy. This guy takes advantage of her. This guy is like an eccentric. He has money, obviously. And she actually describes a situation where she decides to, out of interest, play with some of these gadgets that this guy collects. He is always collecting these new inventions and innovative things. Some of them don't work. And she makes a reference to a time, an occasion when she decided to, out of interest, play or, I don't know, touch one of those innovations. And the man got so mad that he punched her and she flew up against the wall. And she leaves it at that. And she still reveres the man. She doesn't see it as abuse. She doesn't see, and the man does mentally abuse her. He takes advantage of her. I don't know. But then again, it is what it is. You have to read the book through. That's why I say it's a bit complicated in regards to her relationship with men. But all in all, the book is a good book. Is there anything else I can touch upon? Let me just see. I think I've just about covered all the things I need to cover in as much as the book is concerned. Thank you very much for watching this video. Have a good day, and as I always say, goodbye. Let me just put the cover up again if I can find the cover up again. So we're talking about the book Gillespie and I, written by Jane Harris, who also authored a book called The Observations, which is critically acclaimed. All right, I haven't read it, but you can check it out. Thank you, and as I say, goodbye.